Our reading this morning from Isaiah, the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, is one of the most beautiful and hopeful in the whole of the Bible. It has inspired art and poetry and hundreds of millions of hopeful people. Just look at the cover of your bulletin. God is coming to mend all that is broken. Even our broken cosmos itself. Unless Isaiah means it metaphorically, the ceaseless Darwinian struggle of nature, red in tooth and claw, will be transformed in God's day and God's future. But in any case, God's promise is a world in which peace and love are truly at home. And yet our gospel reading is about a different vision of the future. Very different. Jesus gives his disciples a vision of sheer destruction, not only in this passage, but in many others in the Gospels. Sheer destruction. Not a stone is going to be left on stone. There are two sides of the genre of these are two sides of the genre of writing called apocalyptic. Both sides of apocalyptic have been pursued throughout the church's history. There have been divided ways of interpreting it. Fear of judgment filled the Middle Ages. The wars between Christ and Antichrist filled the Reformation. Then apocalyptic thought was partly swallowed up in the Enlightenment and its vision of scientific progress, with all the good that is brought. Yet, at that time, there was also a vision that looked bright to some and very dark to others. Manifest Destiny proved apocalyptic for people of color. Hardly a stone was left on stone for them. Right now, climate change and Russian aggression and vicious political division foreshadow the dark side. And the beauty around us, even the rain we have been praying for, or the relative moral progress made since the Civil Rights Act, they foreshadow the other. Most Anglicans have never been very fond of apocalyptic literature. The prayer book's original author, Thomas Cranmer, left almost all of it out of his lectionary. Perhaps we haven't liked it because we are a people who, on the whole, have honored established things, who seek to build up the institutions holding this world together. And perhaps, too, because we are often fond of ambiguity and of the color gray. Apocalyptic is written by people who see things radically, in darkness or glory, in black or white. They see the day of disaster or the day of promise approaching. Disaster when the power of evil has the upper hand and uses it to crush anything holy, or glory when the love and mercy of God heal the world. They see a time when ambiguities are dissolved into clear, ineluctable choices. The power of evil will demand, are you going to serve God even at the price of everything else? Or will you give in to evil and despair? And the day of glory will ask you, will you keep hope in a future that is God's promised day of redemption and healing? Or are you allowing hope to die within you? Anglicans may not always like to keep such radical things in mind, but it is certain that our Lord personally did. In his own life, he awaited both crucifixion and resurrection, and he had to choose God's way in the face of both his impending disaster and his glory. Do you have a vision of the future? On what ground is it based? One way or another, whatever that vision is, it is essential that your life and mine be based on the solid ground of the living God. Earthquakes are coming, in which not a stone will be left on stone. And the day of God's promise is also dawning, when all things will be healed. The call to us, I believe, is to focus on hope. Death and destruction will not have the last word. God's love will have the last word. It may not look like it when the earthquake strikes, but it is true nonetheless, and firm ground for your feet and mine, even when the stones are falling. For God raised Jesus from the dead, and no darkness can finally prevail over the eternal light of Easter.